Well, more now on that potential meeting between US President Donald Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Mr. Trump is saying the talks could either lead to the greatest deal for the world, or he may just get up and walk away. South Korea announced it happening, quote, by May. But a more precise time or place has not been determined. The White House Deputy Press Secretary says nothing is being ruled out. Well, let's get some analysis on this meeting. John Delury is an associate professor at Yonsei University Graduate School of International Studies. He joins us from Seoul via Skype. Great to have you with us.
You bet.
John, you've been to North Korea about 4 times. You study the peninsula. No sitting president in the US has met with or even spoken to, as we know, a North Korean leader. Is President Trump prepared for this?
It's unprecedented, as you just described it. You know, in a sense, whoever could be president at this moment would not be prepared for this kind of meeting. This is really, you know, kind of off the radar. In some ways, Trump's all the things that make him so fascinating and strange in a way could prepare him oddly for meeting someone like Kim Jong-un. You know, I think it's important for people to try to step back a little bit from Trump and to look at the relationship between the United States and North Korea. These are 2 countries that have never normalized relations, have never dealt with one another, except pretty much with hostility or deep distrust and mutual suspicion. So, you know, it's going to be very hard to separate this from the person of Donald Trump and, for that matter, from the person of Kim Jong-un. But there is something else going on here, which is an attempt to start a dialogue at the very highest level between these 2 countries, you know, and that is something important. And the American public should understand that that's going on and, in a sense, try to support Donald Trump through that process.
John, the critics say that Donald Trump is getting played by North Korea, that essentially he'll be used as propaganda, and that he's accepted this meeting and getting nothing in return, essentially. And they say it'll show the North Korean people that thanks to the nuclear program, the US is willing to treat them as equals. How dangerous is that?
I don't think it's dangerous. Some of that is true. Definitely the meeting will be used for North Korean propaganda. You know, one thing that makes North Korea unique is that it is, to a great extent, a controlled information environment, at least in terms of, you know, public media. It's state-controlled. And so they will message it the way they want, and they're going to make Kim Jong-un of equal stature to Donald Trump, and that's going to be an extraordinary, historic moment for North Koreans. I can assure you that. So yes, that's a liability of what Donald Trump is doing. I don't think it's dangerous, though. Kim Jong-un has already made a number of quite significant, and I think most analysts would say surprising, concessions to make just this meeting happen. He said there aren't going to be any tests of missiles and of his nuclear device arsenal. But also he said, you know, South Korea and the United States can go ahead with their joint military exercises while maybe he's meeting with the South Korean president and in the lead up to meeting with Donald Trump. That's quite surprising. He hasn't asked for any lifting of the sanctions that are in place. And who knows, there could be more positive gestures. For example, it'd be great if the North Koreans release the 3 U.S. citizens that they're detaining as a goodwill gesture, even in advance of the meeting. So Kim Jong-un is given quite a bit by North Korean standards. You know, the real question is what happens, of course, in their meeting, and then what's the follow-through, you know, and where does the process go after the 2 of them sit down?
Last night, John, at a rally, President Trump said, who knows what's going to happen with this meeting. Let's just take a listen to what he had to say.
Hey, who knows? If it happens, if it doesn't happen, I may leave fast, or we may sit down and make the greatest deal for the world and for all of these countries, including, frankly, North Korea.
John, from your perspective, what would the greatest deal look like?
Well, that's a high bar, and obviously this is someone who's who likes to speak in that kind of language. You know, I think actually the most interesting thing that Donald Trump said there is when he said, frankly, it should be a deal that's good for North Korea. That's the kind of thinking that actually makes me consider he may be able to achieve a breakthrough that previous American presidents have not. That's the way you need to be thinking about this. How do you structure a deal where North Korea gets back on the path of giving up their nuclear weapons, as opposed to the current path, which is constantly improving and expanding their arsenal? How do you convince them to do that? And if you're going to do that, it's got to be a deal that's good for them, that's in their interest, both in terms of their security, in terms of their economy, which is something we don't think about too much, but Kim Jong-un is thinking about, and in terms of Kim Jong-un and the regime's, legitimacy. So when Donald Trump says, frankly, I'm ready to make a deal that's good for North Korea, I actually see an opening there. His very unconventional approach will not create the greatest deal the world has ever seen, but it could be a very significant breakthrough on one of the hardest foreign policy problems that the United States has faced, certainly since the end of the Cold War.
Sounds like you have high hopes for these talks. John Delury, really good to get your perspective. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to talk to you.